Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. It seems like you have to be very brave to say things the way you see them, or at least the way you analyze them. And remember, those are strange times, when telling the truth is a revolutionary act. And we have here a former president of Czech Republic comes and places the blame on US and United Kingdom for the war in Ukraine. Now, I don't know what these guys are going to do to him in Czech Republic. Are they going to, I don't know, hang him? What are they going to do to this guy? Well, let's see what he has to say. You have to be very brave to say that. Or on Russia's payroll, right? Yeah, and that would shut people down. Okay. Russia Today, 29th of January. US and UK to blame for Ukraine conflict. Former Czech president. The conflict between Moscow and Kiev really began in 2008, as I said many times. No, I think it's actually is 1991. That's when it started. When NATO agreed to eventually admit Ukraine, Václav Klaus said. 2008 was in Bucharest, and that's when George W. Bush told Putin in Bucharest, a NATO summit, one day Georgia and Ukraine will join NATO. And Putin was like, what the hell are you talking about? What? No, it started in 1991. It started the first time NATO started expanding. That was the first blow. But the Russians were weak, so now they're not. The ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine is the result of a series of mistakes made by the US and its NATO allies. Former Czech President Václav Klaus told the World Economic Forum in Davos in a speech published on Friday. He's never going to be invited again. The West's blatant disregard for the geopolitical context led to this, and I'm quoting, tragic historic event. Tragic for the Ukrainians and the Russians. The rest is not tragic for them. They are actually fulfilling their goals. That, and I'm quoting, could and should have been avoided. Could and should, the same thing I said. Doesn't mean that we're both right, but I think I'm 99% certain that would have been avoided, could have been avoided, without losing any territories, just so you know. Klaus, who led the Czech Republic between 2003 and 2013, said, and I'm quoting, this war started on 4 April 2008. End quote. Klaus argued, referring to a NATO summit in Bucharest, Romania, where members of the US-led bloc decided to support Ukraine and Georgia's aspirations for membership, saying both nations, and I'm quoting, will become members of NATO at some point in the future. Now, I'm going to show you this guy. He says, Ukraine conflict was inevitable after 2008, Putin said. So, recalling the event at which he was present, Klaus called it a tragic mistake. He said he had personally opposed the decision and I'm quoting, tried to argue against it, but it was pushed through by the US and the UK. Most other NATO members, including Germany and France, were also against it at the time, he said, adding that many of the attending presidents and prime ministers stayed irresponsibly silent. They're vassal states, that's why they were silent. Vassal states, borderless. Squeaky, nothing in between the legs. In the face of pressure from London and Washington, I really don't understand this pressure. I know they have an MI6 and all that, they can do a regime change, London, but really, as a military power, okay, Albania can face UK, sorry. Just exaggerating a little bit. See how they're facing the Houthis in Yemen. The West remained oblivious to the nature of Ukrainian statehood, Klaus argued, calling the country an example of an unsuccessful and unfinished transition from communism to parliamentary democracy and market economy. I agree with the guy 100%. Ukraine, he said, was not a consolidated country, as it had major differences in ethnic composition. Diversity is not their strength? How come? And political preferences between its northwest and southeast. The country had already been in a state of civil war since 2014, long before the current escalation, Klaus said. Yeah, in a civil war because of the coup, Mr. Klaus. Following the US-backed coup, right here. Thank you very much. In 2014, the then Ukrainian regions of Donetsk and Lugansk, known as Donbass, refused to accept the new government. It was a coup d'etat. The legitimate government was ousted with a bloody coup. So it was democratically elected. Where are the lovers of democracy? They should have condemned that, but they didn't. They supported it. Accepted a new government, which increasingly embraced nationalist ideology. The regions proclaimed, this is according to Russia Today, which I know the history very well on that thing. The regions proclaimed their independence, and Kiev responded with a military campaign that led to a years-long conflict. And I'm quoting, to pretend that this was not the cause, that was not the case, and to discuss the current war as if it were taking place in a vacuum is neither helpful nor productive, end quote, Klaus argued, adding that it was a, and I'm quoting, big mistake not to pay attention to the fundamental split within the country. Well, that's why we like diversity in the United States of America. It's going to be a split. Klaus also argued that Moscow had not intended to occupy Ukraine when it launched its military operation in February 2022, but merely sought to prevent it from joining NATO. There was one point the Russians used and said, we're going to intervene for those 4 reasons. Unprovoked? Well, it's up to you to dig the 4 points and see if they're unprovoked or not. Russian President Vladimir Putin also recently pointed to NATO's 2008 decision as making conflict inevitable, having drastically changed the situation in Eastern Europe, end quote. Moscow has repeatedly said that preventing Ukraine's accession to NATO is one of the key reasons for its military campaign. They said this and they knew it. These guys knew it. That's why it was planned. They knew it. And if they didn't, that means they are stupid. I mean, ignorant. But they knew it. There are smart people who said it on the TV many, many times. Like Stefan Cohen, Professor Stefan Cohen said it many times, and not only. That's a red line, man, and you know it. The Russian society will not put up with that. Society, not only the political regime. It is now clear that, and I'm quoting, all sides in the conflict have miscalculated, Klaus said, adding that the front lines remain frozen and no end to the conflict is in sight. He called on the West to change its approach and engage in meaningful dialogue with Moscow. The West, not Kiev. And I'm quoting, my modest advice is to start negotiating, Klaus concluded. I think so too. And he remembered this one. Ukraine conflict was inevitable after 2008, Putin said. And let me quote him if he's going to say something here. Said Putin then cited a former Czech president who has recently admitted that the war between Kiev and Moscow started in summer 2008 when the US bloc decided to open its doors to Ukraine and Georgia. End quote. It is unclear if Putin was speaking about Miloš Zeman, Zeman, you know who Zeman is? Go and check him out. Who had enjoyed close relations with Moscow for many years for sharply condemned Russia in February 2022. Of course, Zeman is going to condemn for Zelensky's time. What, are you crazy? All right. So the same, drastically the same thing this guy said, what the other one said. He said the Declaration of State Sovereignty of Ukraine, adopted in July 1990, announced that the then Soviet Social Republic declared its intention to become a permanently neutral state and does not take part in any military blocs and sticks to the non-nuclear principles, not to accept, produce, or acquire nuclear weapons. Yeah, but the Ukrainians claim, yeah, but things changed. You support those guys, the separatists in Donbass, therefore that's null. No, that's null. Well, who overthrew the government? Who destroyed the democracy? Who broke it? You. And what comes after, as I explained many times, it's like you have a legitimate king. In the past, the legitimate king, if you remember, was the guy, the firstborn. All right? And then his line would be the successors. The next king, until it was something happened with those guys, and then you have a brother somewhere, the next in line, that would be around, and he would be the next in line. If there was another guy who would usurp the legitimate king and usually kill the whole bloodline, his children, grandchildren, everybody else. Why? So they can't come back and say, we claim it. It was done. In the medieval times, and not only, they would kill the whole bloodline. Go down with the male. Pop, 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 pop. That means, and I institute my monarchy. I'm going to be the king, and my, offspring will be the kings. But I am illegitimate because I got in power as an illegitimate guy. Everything that's after me, even though they're born from my seed, they're illegitimate because I was the illegitimate. It's like year zero in an illegitimate way. So that's the same here. When the legitimacy, like a linear heavyweight boxer in the world that, Tyson Fury says, I'm the legitimate linear world champion, blah, 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 from the linear. Yeah, supposedly it's the linear, because from that sprang others. But the original one is this one. I'm the linear one. The same here. The line of the Ukrainian democracy was broke by these guys with the coup. So the democracy, as corrupt as it was, and it was broken right there. And instead of going down linear, it was moved here, and then started here. Now everything that started from 2014 down is illegitimate. That's why the Russians said, no, you guys are illegitimate. Since 2014, when the coup occurred, you shifted from the legitimate course of the nation into this, and everything else is illegitimate. Besides, the next elections, not everybody in Ukraine voted. The guys in Donbass did not vote. Therefore, you guys are illegitimate, even by those standards. So you see, this is the point. So it's more to that, my friends. The point is this. Things started when NATO, I would say, violated its gentleman agreement or promise that they made to Shevardnadze. Remember, I said no, when they discussed 1 inch eastward with NATO. Shevardnadze was over there, the foreign minister of Soviet Union, wasn't he? You got his scribbling over there, not only. And James Baker was the Secretary of State of the United States of America. He said that. They're witnesses, but hey, you see, that's one thing when you make a promise as a gentleman, and then you say, well, you didn't write it down. It's no signed. Oh, so we need to go that way? Yeah. Oh, that means you're not a trustworthy person. You're not a gentleman. Well, shame on me. And now you expect the Russians to fall for that one again? I think they fell for many. For the second expansion or extension of expansion, enlargement of NATO. The third, there are 5 already, or 4 or 5. What is that? Coming towards open door policy. Well, it's not really like that, because let's say tomorrow Russia and Cuba and let's say Mexico form a military coalition. Do you think the Americans will just stay idle and say, well, that's okay? Well, it's an open door policy. They can't do that. Do you think they will do that? I guarantee you not. But that's a different story. It's the rules-based world order, which is we can do whatever we want and we tell you what to do, all of you. But you can't tell me what I can or I cannot do. It's like basically I'm God. And you want to live under this kind of tyrant? And if that tyrant looks like that, the tyrant being the government, not the people, the government formed by people. If that government looks like that in the international arena, don't you think that the government would not look in the same way down inside within the country towards you and I? Do you think that the tyrant can just have that dublation, like, I'm going to go here, only with these guys I'm going to be a tyrant. With the other guys, I'm not going to be a tyrant. I'm going to just switch, click, I'm a Democrat, I'm French. Here, I'm a tyrant. Think so? No, it's a mentality. And you apply that mentality in this kind of affairs with others, you're going to apply it with these guys. We have nothing in common with them. These guys, actually, we are their hamsters. They're mice on their spinning wheel. We produce for them. But now they want to expand. They want everybody to produce for them. That's it. It's not only the United States of America. What do you think this is? Getting this one. And I talk about Adolf. Oh, he want to take over the world. It's okay. You fuck him up. And then it was two that took over the world. So from one, oh, hello, Mary Lou. Anyway, so from one, they got to 2. And now, after 1991, they got to 1, and now got to 3. Or at least 2 blocks. The plantation and the club. The plantation is Al Capone with his vassal states, and the other one is the club that forms around BRICS Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and others. Who's going to win? Truth and good and love will win. Why don't you look around you and see how those things win? Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.